Everybody ready? Good evening. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight to our special call meeting. With that, I will call the meeting to order. And let's call the roll.
Matthews.
Here.
Ingles. Here. Frazier.
Here.
Bolt.
Here.
Rutherford.
Here.
Seahorn.
Here.
Richter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, item 1, consideration of resolution of the City of Shawnee providing notice of proposed changes toward boundaries pursuant to Title 11, Section 20-101 through Section 20-106 of Oklahoma State statutes. And you're fast, you're already up there.
I'm already
All
up
yours.
there. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Following a federal decennial census, Shawnee must review its ward's boundaries. Title 11 of the Oklahoma statutes says that this change must be preceded by a resolution of the municipal governing body or alternatively by an initiative petition filed with the municipality. So Title 11 of the Oklahoma statutes, Section 20-103, also requires that the governing body gives 30-day notice, and that notice was published on January 11, so we are past the 30-day notice. What staff is bringing to you this evening is the request for the City Commission's approval of the required resolution to declare that wards need to be updated, and I'd be happy to answer questions on this resolution.
Questions? No, pretty straightforward. I think we're good. All righty. So with that, do we have a motion?
Move to approve item 1.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
And so Daniel, was that you, Cammie? Okay. With that, we'll have you read the title then.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution of the City of Shawnee providing notice of proposed changes to ward boundaries pursuant to Title 11, Sections 20-101 through Section 20-106 of the Oklahoma statutes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 1. We'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 2, public hearing regarding modification of the ward boundaries of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma. Andrea, it's all yours again.
Yes, thank you. Ahead of the public hearing, allow me to give some of the background information on the proposed ward changes. The City of Shawnee undergoes this redistricting process to adjust electoral boundaries after every decennial census. The redistricting is really designed to ensure fair representation by making certain that the wards contain about equal population numbers. For the City of Shawnee, the redistricting is guided by both our city charter as well as state statute. City charter itself prescribes that the city has 6 wards, and the state calls for compact and contiguous districts, and both the charter and state law stipulate that substantially equal numbers of population should be contained within each one of the wards. State law goes on to say that as soon as practical after the decennial census, the city must review its wards. With the 2020 census data published in late 2021, there was insufficient time to complete the redistricting ahead of the last general election we had in June of 2022. Therefore, city staff has been diligently working behind the scenes to prepare for this redistricting. Just as a side note, at the time the U.S. Census Bureau released the data, the city had already begun working towards the development of charter amendments for ward-specific voting. The data used in the redistricting process is provided by the U.S. Census Bureau, and it contains essential information for local officials, allowing them to make informed decisions on the redistricting process. The census data set is provided at the block level, which is really the smallest geographic unit at which the U.S. Census Bureau provides this information. In some cases, that is equivalent to a city block. In other cases, it is a larger area. In order to provide some clarification on common misconceptions that you may or may not have heard, there is really no newer data available. The 2020 census redistricting data is the latest and greatest with which the redistricting has to occur. It uses total population data as captured as part of the decennial census, which is completely independent of local voter registration. The redistricting data is anonymous. It does not provide any personally identifiable information. And it is, again, grouped by census block, which cannot be attributed to any one address. Within the city of Shawnee, population within the census blocks varies from 0 in some of our outlying areas to up to 739 residents. Both city charter and state law stipulate, again, equal numbers in all of the wards. Because the city has experienced a healthy growth between 2010 and 2020, yes, sorry.
Yes.
About 5.6% of growth between those 2 years, and most of the growth was really in wards 1 and 6. In addition to that, in September of 2021, the city de-annexed territory south of the North Canadian River, so all of our population centers shifted a little northward. That is particularly important because looking at the current ward boundaries, there was a clear difference in numbers. And the table that was included in your materials showed the numbers ahead of the adjustments, where we had up to a maximum deviation of 776 persons from one ward to another. And then, of course, the proposed population where there is a much smaller deviation among those wards. That left side of the table, again, that is what our current wards contain in terms of population. The right side of that table is after staff had an opportunity to adjust those boundaries. Ultimately, the plus minus 46 is less than 1% deviation from the target value, and this target value was based on the 2020 population for our 6, for the totality of the city, divided by 6. And at that point, we arrive at a number of just 5,203. Plus minus 1%, we're looking at a range that we want it to be in of 5,151 to 5,255 residents per ward. And allow me to step you through this here with the map as a visual aid. You will notice that on the left side we have the complete ward boundaries, new with a dark, thick overlay of the current ward boundaries. And then on the right side, there is a zoomed-in version that hones in on the changes that are proposed. Ward 5, which is shown here in yellow, really did not require any changes because it already fell within that desired range. One by one, we will have some circles appear. If I do this right, I may need help.
Yes, I need to get the newest. Did you put it out there on purpose?
I did. I'll talk through it.
Well,
We'll be good.
We
We'll
can
be
give
good.
them a minute if we need to. That's not a problem.
It was circles appearing around the changes as I was talking, but I can talk through those.
Okay.
Brian, I think we'll be good.
There we go.
There they are. 2. I will speak fast. No.
Yeah.
Ward number 4, shown here in this purple color, really had to be adjusted westward. There was a low population number in Ward 4, the way it was currently drawn. By virtue of it growing westward, the next The next adjustment that had to be made was Ward 3, which had to grow northward in order for it to have enough population. Now, with the changes made to those two southern boundaries, you can imagine that the next one required some additional adjustments, so our Ward 2 was adjusted northward. We looked particularly at the precinct boundaries to make sure that we were not coming in just one block off of those precinct boundaries. So what looks like a more significant change on Ward Boundary 2 is actually in line with some of the precinct boundaries that you can find particularly on the eastern edge. And then lastly, the adjustment was made that Ward 1 and 6 were separated along Kickapoo. It is just slightly more intuitive than a squiggly line through the middle of a neighborhood. Once approved, the underlying map file would be submitted to the OU Center for Spatial Analysis for integration into the Potawatomi County voting precincts. And the new ward boundaries would then be ready for those interested in filing their candidacy for the June election for the city commission seats that are up for election this year. And I would be more than happy to answer any additional questions you have.
Questions? I think we explained it well. Very good. So with that, then we will open the public hearing. So is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, we'll move on to anyone that would like to speak in opposition. Okay, well, seeing none, we will close the public hearing then. Any discussion up here? Pretty straightforward, really. Yep. So we will move on to item 3 then. Consideration of an ordinance modifying ward boundaries of the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma. It is your show tonight.
It is. There is no substantially new information beyond the information that I shared prior to the public hearing, but again, I'd be happy to answer any question you have prior to your vote on the ordinance.
When was the last change made to the ward boundaries?
So after the 2010 decennial census, there were some annexations and de-annexations, and ultimately the final redistricting did not occur until 2017.
Okay, thank you.
So we're at least 3 years ahead of the last go-around. Of course, none of us were up here then. You guys probably, maybe you got the vote on it, I guess, probably. A couple of you did. Well, that's good. I'm glad we got on it faster. Any other questions? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve item 3.
Second.
Who made, was that you, Mark?
Yes.
You made the motion, and I think Cammie was the second, so Mark and Cammie. And I think it's your turn again.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance modifying ward boundaries of the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 3. We will call the question. And motion passes 7-0. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.